Hello everyone, good afternoon. This is Shankar Swaminathan. In the past 3-4 days, I have been talking about various aspects of the Indo-Pakistan war and discussing certain vital issues. The war does raise certain vital questions, one of which is the role played by China and its place. When I actually say China's place, because it's a place between India and Pakistan, and China always keeps claiming, but both India and Pakistan are its friends. And Pakistan has always been fond of saying China is its all-weather friend, whatever that actually means. In the international politics, in my opinion, there cannot be all-weather friendship, because in the international politics, every country is first and foremost loyal only to its own interests. That is exactly how it should be. If a country is not basically first and foremost loyal to its own interests, then the country would not be worth its salt. So when Pakistan claims that China is its all-weather friend, I'm not really too sure if China also reciprocates the same sentiments. But then, to understand China and the mindset of the Chinese leaders, one should have a rudimentary understanding of the communist mindset. The thing about the Stalinist, Maoist communists is that they conveniently take what suits them from the Marxist ideology, to which they all profess allegiance. For instance, Marxism does not worry about the means to an end, unlike Gandhism. So the modern communists justify whatever stances or positions that they take on any given issue as a tactic, but as a most suitable tactic, warranted and necessitated by a particular situation or a prevailing contingency. Thus, they can easily provide an argument or a justification not to live by any values of fairness or decency. Everything goes by the name of practical consideration, and that's exactly what they need to do in a given circumstance if they have to accomplish a particular objective. So, hard-headed practical considerations that would promote their agenda, regardless of the means adopted, would provide a perfect rationale and justification for their actions. Exactly what I said just now. So, values of right and wrong. So basically would get a go by. Now this would actually explain the consistent moral support that China has been extending to Pakistan over several decades, in spite of whatever transgressions that Pakistan has been making. China has chosen to look the other way. So even as the Chinese communists have always been wary of the Islamic terrorism, which is the reason why they have actually kept the Uyghur Muslims inside barbed wire near the Mongolian border. They have always actually looked the other way when Pakistan has been encouraging the terrorists, training them, harboring them, nurturing them, sending them into India. Because that suits China's purpose too, which is to weaken India. But so China has always been wary of Islamic terrorism, and China has always taken care that Islamic terrorism should not find any kind of root within Chinese territory. So China's long-term ambition, the only long-term ambition now, is to overtake America in all spheres, economic, military and political. And that is very much within the realms of possibility. Any action that would serve towards this end for China would be perfectly legitimate from its own eyes. So where does India come in all this? Within Asia, the only country that China has always considered as a rival is India, particularly because of the fact that India has always asserted its position in the international fora. It has not bothered to go out of the way to please China at any point in time. In fact, it was only Jawaharlal Nehru whose initiative made sure that China became a member of United Nations. Till then, China was completely isolated, the communist China. The Western world were always actually wary of the communists in those times, because during the Cold War period there was always a rivalry between two different ideologies. Anyway, so China at one point in time, though Nehru had always talked in favor of China and the United Nations and the other international forums that they should not be kept isolated, China was always wary of India. Particularly, they were not able to digest the fact that Jawaharlal Nehru was rising in stature in the international arena as a tall statesman. So that was basically the reason for the 1962 war. In fact, it was openly stated in those times by Chu Enlai, I believe, that India needs to be taught a lesson. The same thing was said when China went into a war with Vietnam. Anyway, that was basically the attitude of China in those times. So, cut to the chase in the present times, as long as India refuses to play ball with China, not as an equal, but just as one of the satellite countries of China, or still better, a supplicant nation, if you like, China would always look at India with suspicion and perhaps even insecurity. And India asserting its individuality, even by defying China at times, has not helped either. One of the things after independence during Jawaharlal Nehru's time as a Prime Minister in India, the Tibetan issue actually cropped up, and India harbored Dalai Lama in Dharmashala. Ever since Dalai Lama has been living in India, that has always been an irritant to China. So these are all things that did not actually endear India favorably to China. But then China is also clever enough to realize that it simply cannot afford to wage a war against any country directly in the present times. I'm actually talking a little bit in the context of the war that has just taken place between India and Pakistan. So while there would be a lot of saber rattling by China time and again, such as the one in Doklam, or the threats that he keeps posing to Taiwan from time to time in South China Sea, for China in the foreseeable future, I do not think would initiate a war with any country, because it would be very much to its economic detriment. China knows only too well, if it has to attain its objective as a preeminent superpower, it is important to make sure that its economy is not shattered. And the modern wars with such vast technological advancement of weaponry really proved to be extremely costly, very expensive for any country. Only a foolish country like Russia would keep waging a war with Ukraine for no apparent serious reason for about 3.5 years, which must have set back its economy considerably. All of those gains, in my view, Russia could have secured even without a war. Anyway, China, in the case of China, it is far from being so foolish or so impractical. But then China would do everything within its power to keep pressure on India constantly, and as a country that has a potential to challenge its power and might. So, while South Korea, South Korea, Japan and India are all in the neighborhoods, and all the three countries are economically strong, I would say, China does not really worry so much about South Korea or Japan, but it actually worries a little bit about India because of India's military might too. And possibly the Indians' self-esteem about themselves and their capacity to assert and the respectability that India commands in the international arena. So, and that is exactly the background in which we see China trying to encircle India with its liberal support to some of the littoral states like Sri Lanka, Maldives and Bangladesh, and even the landlocked country Nepal. But the success has been limited so far. This actually puts China in an advantageous position in the sense that When China is able to gain some toehold in all these countries, it can actually conveniently spy on India and all that, I believe it has been doing from Sri Lanka right now, placing a spy ship there in Sri Lanka. China also has a grandiose vision about itself, about its One Road, One Belt initiative, in which Pakistan is a vital partner. It plays a very vital role. There have been times since the Second World War that America, with its economic might and strength, have managed to gain and retain great influence. But actually there is a difference there. America has not been actually seen by all these countries which have been the beneficiaries as a kind of hegemonistic power. Whereas in the case of, and in fact, America has also been seen as benevolent by quite a few countries, and the countries have not actually felt very uneasy to accept any kind of support that has been extended by America. This could be for various reasons, which are not necessarily germane to this particular presentation here. But China's approach is more calculated and audacious, if not diabolical. It aims to burden the needy countries with loans and borrowings from China for their very survival. That there would be no way for them to free themselves from the clutches of China in due course. But then of late, while many countries have woken up to the danger of getting into China's financial stranglehold, such as the African countries or even some of the Latin American countries, they have all actually woken up to the reality. They don't really want to get too much into the stranglehold of China, from which there won't be any respect for them, or they'll not be able to come out of the grip. Pakistan is actually in a different category. It is an important partner for China, as foolish as ever, and it doesn't really realize the danger that is very much present, ever present, getting into China's stranglehold a little too much. But for the One Belt, One Road initiative of China, Pakistan is really very important partner. So from China's angle, the situation could not be better if there is a skirmish between India. See, as long as the pot keeps boiling between India and China, India and Pakistan, and there is some skirmish or other, they do whatever that it can to aggravate the situation for its own benefit. It serves the dual purpose of keeping India under pressure too, by engaging in a proxy war with India through Pakistan, and also tightening its grip over Pakistan economically. So that's actually from the China's angle. But then the saving grace is that India is now a very confident power in its own right. Particularly after this mammoth victory over Pakistan, it's a very significant victory because the war has actually concluded in 4 days. Pakistan has been made to realize that it doesn't really have the wherewithal to continue the war, and it has been forced to eat a humble pie, and it is only Pakistan that has requested the ceasefire. So this has actually conclusively proved that India is no pushover at all, particularly for China. So China itself, as a shrewd and a very keen observer of the way the war went, would have drawn the right lessons. So China may be even forced to take it easy with India in the days and years to come, perhaps even friendly. Because as it is said, when there is a very tight embrace, it's also really very difficult to come out of that embrace. But then the saving grace is that India is now a confident power in its own right, particularly after this mammoth victory over Pakistan. India has conveyed a very effective message, not just to Pakistan, but also to China, but also to the entire world. So China, as I said, as a hard-headed pragmatists that they are, they may actually be forced to change their strategy, approach towards India. But it would be too soon for India to drop its vigil either against Pakistan or China, and I'm absolutely sure India won't. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, its reliance on weaponry, etc., is known to everyone, and China is believed to have supplied about 80% of its weaponry to Pakistan. Again, China has an ulterior motive in this, because China would have actually tried to test its weapon weaponry. All of it have been developed in the recent past in China, and China has not had a war in the recent past, nor is it likely to wage one by itself. So it would have actually served the purpose of testing the Chinese weaponry through Pakistan, but I think China will have every reason to be disappointed with its own inventions, weaponry, the way they have actually functioned in this war. And India has actually brought it to light very clearly. So let's wait. Let's wait and see how China is going to. China still has not actually reacted very firmly in one way or other to the war. But its future actions in the near future and though in the long term, it's going to actually give us an indication as to China, as to how China is going to adopt its strategies in future, particularly with respect to its relationship with India. Jai Hind.